In the spirit of play, I'd like to begin this talk on the sacred clown with a joke. A man wanted to become a monk, and he went to the monastery and talked to the head monk. The head monk said, "You must take a vow of silence and can only say 2 words every 3 years." The man agreed. And after the first 3 years, the head monk came to him and said, "What are your 2 words?" "Food cold," the man replied. 3 more years went by, and the head monk came to him and said, "What are your 2 words?" "Robe dirty," the man exclaimed. 3 more years went by, and the head monk came to him again and said, "What are your 2 words?" "I quit," said the man. "Well," the head monk replied, "I am not surprised. You have done nothing but complain ever since you got here." So I'm going to add a one-liner. I bought a new vacuum cleaner, and so far all it's been doing is gathering dust. Some owner. So the way of the sacred clown is to bring us back to balance when our world becomes challenging or chaotic. There isn't an exact formula for crazy wisdom. Sacred clowns are simply expressing an empathic spin on situations taken too seriously, even when those situations are serious. Or they're lampooning individuals who are self-important, or gently bringing our attention to things that are important. I'm not aiming at an appeal to the intellect. I'm hoping to provide examples that invoke a spirit of play. My invitation for right now, with this extended family, is to let go of woe and explore the spirit of informed play. First, I'm going to introduce Nasruddin, who is the sacred clown of the Sufis. The Sufis are the mystic branch of Islam, and Nasruddin is a popular figure in folklore used to tell short, whimsical teaching stories. So imagine a priest with a beard down to his navel and a turban that's too big. He's sitting at the edge of town, growling at the wind. Someone approaches and asks, "Nasruddin, what are you doing?" Nasruddin stops growling and says, "I'm using magic to keep away tigers." The person replies, "Nasruddin, there aren't tigers anywhere near here." Nasruddin smiles and says, "See, the magic is working." A month later, someone found Nasruddin and told him, "Your donkey has been lost." Nasruddin replied, "Thank goodness I was not on the donkey at the time, or I'd be lost too." Nasruddin eventually found his donkey and was riding it backwards. "Why are you riding your donkey backwards?" everyone asked. He said, "I'm not backwards. It's my donkey that's going in the wrong direction." The Lakota Heyokas actually rode on their horses backwards. In traditional Lakota culture, Heyokas were sacred clowns with spiritual power. Perhaps the most famous Lakota Heyoka is the visionary medicine man Black Elk. Black Elk came to public attention through the book Black Elk Speaks, which was originally published in 1932, but was still going strong in the 1970s when I discovered it. The words of Black Elk were translated by his son for John Neihart, who faithfully recorded and then published those words. What is mostly remembered from this book are the visions and miraculous events from his life, as well as the tragic history of the Lakota. What is less recalled is the fact that Black Elk was a Heyoka. The following description of a Lakota Heyoka is found in the book Black Elk Speaks. According to Black Elk, the function of Heyokas is to lighten heaviness, to bring joy when there is much sorrow. Heyokas have sacred power, and they share some of this with all the people, but they do it through funny actions. Black Elk speaks. The truth comes with two faces. One is sad with suffering, and the other laughs. But it is the same face, laughing or weeping. Black Elk gives the following example of their antics. Black Elk speaks. Even while we were singing, the Heyokas were doing foolish things and making laughter. For instance, two Heyokas with long, crooked bows and arrows that were painted in a funny way would come to a shallow puddle of water. They would act as though they thought it was a wide, deep river they had to cross. So, making motions, but saying nothing, they would test the depth of the water. So this is my prop. Taking their long, crooked bows, they would thrust these into the water, not downwards, but flatwise, just under the surface. This would make the whole arrow wet. Standing the arrow up beside them, they would show that the water was far over their heads in depth. So they would get ready to swim. One would then plunge into the water, into the puddle, the little shallow puddle, remember, head first, getting his face in the mud and fighting the water wildly as though he was drowning. Then the other one would plunge in to save his comrade, and there would be more funny antics in the water to make the people laugh. End quote. I'd like to take a moment to put this in historical context. The Pine Ridge Reservation was an extremely harsh environment. Black Elk participated in the ghost dance movement, which empowered the Lakota, but frightened white people. He was near Wounded Knee and heard the cavalry massacre of surrendered Lakota people. He gathered resistance, a small group of warriors that found the cavalry. He wanted to attack, but others warned him not to because they knew there were some really good shots among the soldiers, and he could get killed for nothing. But Black Elk felt inspired, rubbed the earth over his body, and charged the cavalry with his arms stretched out like a great bird, chanting and feeling his visions. The bullets were buzzing around him, but he was neither touched nor afraid. When Black Elk reached the firing line, he turned back. When he was nearly back to his people, he stopped chanting and dropped his arms and was immediately struck and wounded. He was taken to safety, but this wounding and the wisdom of Chief Red Cloud informed him that fighting was not the way, and his path had become more focused on the sacred clown. That generation of Heyokas has passed, but that tone may be a universal aspect of Great Spirit. I have one more story to add here. In his old age, Black Elk would do Heyoka tricks to cheer up the children. One of these tricks involved putting gunpowder in the ground of a teepee and inviting the children to come and watch as he made the earth move. He would dance and sing and secretly light the gunpowder. The last time he did it, the ground was a little wet and he couldn't get the gunpowder to ignite. So he got too close, and it went off in his face, blinding his right eye. He was later asked if he regretted his actions that day, given the consequences. He was emphatic. An old man losing sight in one eye was a small price to pay for bringing joy to the children. I understand. When I was managing a human services organization, sometimes I would become the sacred clown. I had really good David Byrne impressions, the weird ways he would dance. You may ask yourself. And I'd be contorting my body like he did. They loved it. Or when I did crazy moon dance, I knew that doing this had very real consequences, that I would feel severe pain later. But it was worth it to bring some joy to the office. The sacred clown is perennial. A lot of us grew up with Coyote Roadrunner cartoons. Coyote is an indigenous trickster who is tricking himself in these cartoons. All the situations were absurd, and Coyote was invulnerable. Sometimes I'd wish he'd had the good sense not to run off the side of a cliff. For me, there was a lesson in something like equanimity. And to watch Roadrunner run through the painted cliff and Coyote then follow and fail, hitting it square, well, the Roadrunner had a bit of magic that any kid or underdog could enjoy. In this spirit, I found an actual park sign from a large park in Redwood City, California, that may be instructive. In big letters, the sign is warning that coyotes are active in this area and they are wild animals. So control your pets and keep proper distance. Then there is fine print at the bottom, probably intended to erase fear. It reads, call animal control if you see dangerous coyote activity, such as coyote carrying a box marked Acme, coyote detonating explosives, coyote in possession of a giant magnet, coyote holding a sign that says detour, coyote in possession of a catapult or anvil. We all make mistakes. So the trickster suggests that we not take ourselves too seriously. Another function of the trickster is to rearrange our expectations or perceptions, or point out egoic, inflated, or shared difficulties. And a third function is to lift our spirits, turning aspects of human behavior into absurd comedy, laughing with others at things that may seem funny when the situation is turned upside down. We had a saying as hardworking athletes when I was a young man: if you can laugh, you can't be doing too badly. And the same could be true of our life situations. If we can find humor, we are lifted from fixating on the difficulty or on our own despair. The idea of laughter as medicine was used by Norman Cousins, who used humor to overcome ankylosing spondylitis, which in 1964 had a 1 in 500 chance of recovery. Cousins checked out of the hospital and into a hotel where he made humor a major part of his treatment. watching a variety of shows and movies that induced belly laughs. He believed laughter played a big role in his recovery. Humor is part of our modern world, although whether it is healing or not can be a bit tricky. Sacred humor can in no way be mean-spirited or aggressive. The humor that is meant to jab is not sacred. And I don't feel it's funny when someone falls down by accident or makes an embarrassing mistake. It could even have caused injury. Falling as a sacred clown is a parody of our lack of balance. It's done on purpose. Sacred humor can include slapstick, wit, wordplay, the absurd or silly, and keen comedic observations of the human condition that otherwise go unsaid. Whatever tickles your fancy. So now I'm going to bring in a wonderful modern philosopher, Dr. Ian McGilchrist, who believes that the major problem with the current human condition is that we humans have become mostly left brain dominated and are largely right brain deprived. Broadly speaking, the left brain is logical and detail oriented, and the right brain is more holistic, intuitive, and connected with the world. He believes humor is important for the right brain. That's why he comes into conversation with Monty Python's John Cleese. Here's a piece of their conversation that really caught my attention. John Cleese is speaking, and Dr. McGilchrist is nodding approval. Cleese says, "I always thought that comedy was a luxury. I began to realize that comedy is much more important than that." End quote. John Cleese had an epiphany and provides further explanation. Quote, "This new view of comedy first occurred to me quite dramatically when I was in Sarajevo for a film festival, and they told me about that period in their recent history when they'd been besieged by the Serbs. They were being shelled and shot at all day for 4 years. I said, 'How did you cope?' And they said they found underground car parks and converted them into movie theaters. They'd go into these cinemas and watch comedy, a lot of it Monty Python. They said when they came out, they felt better, but nothing had actually gotten better. The act of laughing had moved them into a part of their brain or mind where they could cope better with the awful situation they were in. Throughout my life, I've had a lot of people thank me for helping them through a difficult part of their life. They are saying that my comedy cheered them up and gave them something they needed to get through their situation." End quote. This is very much in line with Norman Cousins using comedy to heal from ankylosing spondylitis. I would suggest that comedy is a potential ingredient of joy, and joy is a force of nature. When we get a dose of comedy, open up to the sacred clown, maybe we also become more open to the joy of life. Then maybe we are more able to resume whatever challenges are central to our lives. We can get back into the game without the weight of rage or hate. No one needs the weight of rage or hate. I'm going to close with some upside down thinking that makes heavy into light. When Jesus said that the meek will inherit the earth, that's upside down perception, the opposite of accepted norms. St. Francis also saw the world upside down. He lived an unconventional life of service, and all things under the sun and moon were truly his relatives. Some people thought it was funny that he would talk with animals. He clearly lacked self-importance. When I was a child, I knew there was something unexpected to be found by literally looking at the world upside down or by rolling down a hill. For a moment, the world seemed fluid, and I felt a tickle that we might call joy. I've given around 50 talks for Scoof, and I've always told jokes because humor really can lighten the load. We all live with both joys and sorrows. My ongoing message is this: if you find joy, share it with Brother Sun and Sister Moon so that no one can take it away. Thank you for sharing these moments together.